Some people say that the United Church isn't bold enough about telling its story, that we hide our light under a bushel. That was literally true here at St. James United in Montreal. For nearly 80 years, the church was hidden behind a row of commercial buildings. Well, all that's changed. St. James United is facing the future confidently, and the face it's presenting to the city of Montreal is nothing short of spectacular.
It's so exciting. I can describe the church now as the one they've just done the renovations on instead of the one with all the buildings in front of it.
We have one of the most beautiful churches in Montreal. You look at the window, and when it's lit, it's there. It's there.
The fact that you can see the front of the church now, and you can see the history in it, you can see the beauty in it. It's just all right there, and it's really attractive.
The workers, when they were working here, it was a labor of love.
This is downtown, so there's buildings. There's not much open space in this area, and then you see this open space with this beautiful old building.
It's great to be here, just to be part of this day. It's an amazing thing that you've done here.
To have you here,
well, thank you.
And it is a great day for us. We're all excited and looking forward to the celebrations of the day. It's been a long time in coming, 80 years. Some folks who are here tonight will have been waiting for this this event. Some of us perhaps a little less, 4, 5, 6 years.
Can you give us the potted history of St. James, how we ended up with this row of commercial buildings in front of the church? And I mean, because there's obviously a whole big history that came before the 80 years of wishing it weren't there.
Yeah, well, you know, in the late 1900s and 1880s, the building was, moved from, or constructed here, and it was a move from sort of lower Montreal to upper Montreal, and the area here with the other big churches, and dynamic and vibrant congregation. But in the early 20s, it fell upon some financial difficulties in spite of all the grandeur of the place. And our foremothers and fathers of the time had to make what must have been, I mean, I can only imagine, a very painful decision. Yesterday I was trying to put myself in their place of what it would have been to stand there and watch it going up, And there are people who want to go, oh, well, they never should have done that. Well, they did what they thought was the right thing, and it was the right thing for that time and place. And I think ultimately, had they not had the courage, and I think it was courageous, to do what they did, the building wouldn't be here today. And I often referred to the 1927 structure as the blessing and the curse. And the curse was, yes, it hid us from the city. The blessing was, it paid the bills.
Arlen is the person who struggled. Paul Sauvé struggled. We all struggled as trustees to get the legal aspects of this together. It was an awful lot of work. It was at times heartbreaking because we'd go forward and we'd hit a roadblock and we'd have to do something else. It was hard because in the process of doing the project, we had to change banks, we had to do the change of financing. The process from there, once we started, just blossomed. It blossomed like, wow, the buildings are coming down, we're opening up the church. After, 70 years, it's happening. It's happening, and we have a way of doing it that will sustain the church financially.
When I came here in 2001, they had a proposition before them to, tear down some of the buildings, but to rebuild in glass and steel and all this kind of stuff. And there had been those high-rise propositions. But somewhere in the reflection of the congregation, I think they really didn't want to go there. It was very tempting sometimes because of the financial implications. Oh God, we're going to solve all our problems and we'll have millions of dollars. But there was a cost for that, and I think they kept resisting that cost of, again, keeping us hidden, and decided that no, this was the right thing. This is the compromise, to do this partial unveiling out front, to have the building visible, to keep some of that which our, forefathers and mothers left us, and so to keep us focused as a congregation and a visible congregation in the city.
Amazing project. Certainly for someone walking along the street. Tell me about the project from your perspective.
Well, it's many years in the making, because I personally have been associated to St. James for almost 20 years and trying to find solutions to either redevelop, restore, bring the stonework back, get the stained glass restored, the interiors. So it's a very long process. I guess the long and short of it, from the big concert hall projects of the late 80s and early 90s, that would have probably changed the whole acoustics of this wonderful cathedral. We went back to a more humble approach of keeping the two paths.
You've created a very exciting urban space there in front.
Essentially, we created a common square, which is pretty unique, I guess, for Montrealers, other than maybe Notre Dame. But this is very downtown. It's St. Catherine. It's unique to Canada, I would say.
But a lot of the church redevelopment projects I see in other Canadian cities, clearly the bankable part of it is like a new tower or condos. Absolutely. Or something like that. So it strikes me that as a business endeavor, this really was a fine balance for you folks at LM Sauvé.
It's a huge balance. Hence the necessity for the $4 million of public monies, because on its own this project would have never floated commercially. It's already, with the amount of debt on the project right now, it's already a delicate equation. But as I said, with the redevelopment of the space and higher retail rates, it will float. We're certain of it. But obviously, you have to give the thing a chance. You've got to market it properly. You have to attract proper tenants and whatnot.
The people of St. James United faced all kinds of unexpected challenges when they started this renovation. Where, for example, do you go to get a new gargoyle carved? Well, they found the man along with dozens of other skilled artisans, masons, glaziers, and stained glass window artists.
Martine, pouvez-vous décrire un peu le défi du projet?
Ben, ici, ça a été, premièrement, moi ça fait 5 ans que je suis maçonne. Et puis ici, c'est un projet assez exceptionnel parce qu'on avait à travailler sur des pierres qu'on ne voit pas souvent. C'est-à-dire, comme ce muret-là, maintenant, malheureusement, c'est assez rare qu'on peut faire des trucs comme ça.
Ça doit être assez spécial aussi de faire un travail qui est aussi public que ça. Le monde passe toujours.
Oui, on a beaucoup de commentaires, des gens qui sont tellement heureux qu'on a fait redécouvrir ce bâtiment-là. À tous les jours, on a plein de gens qui viennent nous voir puis qui sont tous émerveillés de voir ce qu'on fait.